Welcome to FaithWorks Live. Here's your host, Rebecca Haney.
Hey, it's you and me and a microphone. Let's do this. This is FaithWorks Live, and it's my joy to be with you. We like to talk about what it looks like to live out our faith on the daily in a crazy old mixed up Romans 1 type of world. And that can be at your kitchen table. That can be at, your local congregation. That can be at your soup kitchen. That's in your neighborhood. And that is also in the state house. That is where decisions are made. And a friend of mine is really delving into where angels fear to tread. She is involved in a campaign of her own for State House, and she is willing to say the tough things. One of the things I really appreciate about her, courage is a virtue oft in demand, often needed, but seldom seen. And Sam Fett joins us, Samantha Fett. What's on your campaign signs? Is it Samantha?
Samantha.
Okay, so that's what I should call you, Samantha Fett. Fresh off the campaign trail, taking a break to talk to us about issues that really matter, including how our government that cannot define woman when asked point blank has now decided apparently to try and redefine woman to mean also men. So we're in enlightened, oh brave new world in which we are, the we happy enlightened few. Samantha, it's great to talk with you. This is a crazy mess, is where we are today.
Yes, and I think we share that sentiment that what do we do? We're in the middle of this culture war, and how do we navigate? And it just seems like you make a little bit of progress, and then you just get pushed back further. And so it's an ongoing struggle and battle, and it certainly takes courage. So I say choose courage.
Mm-hmm. Well, what does that look like? I know you're stepping into the fray, and you're choosing to say, yes, I want to be in the running to represent my people here in your district. So tell us again, remind us what your district is. And I know the primaries are coming up very quickly here.
Yeah. So I'm running for House District 22, which is down in Warren County. And the primary is June 4th. So we're out there talking to as many people as possible. And, I've lived here for many, many years. And so a lot of people know who I am and are excited that I have taken this leap of faith to run for office because they have seen me in action, whether it was on the school board or taking my fight to the Capitol and educating legislators on the things that are happening on the ground that need to be addressed. Like you said earlier, talking about the things that maybe make people uncomfortable. And that dives into a lot of different things, parental rights. We talk a lot about gender ideology. There's a lot of things that are attacking our kids right now, and families feel threatened and they don't know what to do. And so it really takes those types of people that can come out and say, okay, let's have a conversation about this. What exactly is going on? And so I've been spending the last couple of years at the Capitol really advocating for different issues that not just education, but parental issues, religious freedom, medical freedom, those types of things that people on the ground, they really want, but they don't know how to ask for it. So it was my time to run. I'm really excited, and we're working hard.
Are you hearing on the campaign trail, as you're talking about, I'm sure, a myriad of different issues? Yours is a combination of sort of town and rural. So you've got a good cross section of good salt of the earth Iowa people. And I would assume they are interested in constitutional governance, personal liberty, concerned about probably the direction, security, border security issues that we have with our economy, all of these things. Are they also talking about so what we might term social issues, like concerns about the family, concerns about schools, about what's happening, the gender agenda that we've talked about before on this show? Does that come up fairly often?
Yes. And I will say that what I hear is this. I don't know what's happening in my grandchild's school. My grandbaby is saying that her friend is identifying as a tree and has to leave class to get sunlight. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, oh, okay. And I don't know if that's completely true, but what is happening, right? So there's a lot of confusion. People don't know what to do. And yeah, absolutely. We're hearing, we want our kids, we send our kids to school to learn, right? We want them to learn math and reading and history. And instead they come home questioning their gender and feeling, the race issues and, social justice and all of these things that are not, that's not what we are sending our kids for. So of course parents are like, hey, what's going on, and asking questions. So it's definitely top of mind. The moment I say anything about education, that's the first thing that's the first thing that gets mentioned, is the gender identity issues.
That's fascinating and heartbreaking all at the same time, because as exactly as you mentioned, we send kids to school, presumably so that they can be better educated, better equipped, so that they can grow as human beings, so they have an understanding of what's right and wrong, all of those things. And not so that they can misidentify as some sort of feral cat species and claim to have, that they're oppressed because they can't have a litter box at the basketball game. Like, that is the opposite of education. It kind of reminds me, I referenced Romans 1. There's a verse in there that says, professing to be wise, we have become utter fools. And I really like, that's now. That's us.
Yes.
Lord help this generation. And yet, so into that fray, we want to present good leadership, because I don't think it's just about standing on the sidelines, hiding our heads in the sand. I mean, I have chosen to homeschool. We have chosen to homeschool at our family. So some of us go to the homestead, and we're, that's how we fight the revolution. But all the kids deserve better than this. Every single child. And we care enough about the kids in our communities, in our neighborhood, in our state, that they deserve better than this. And I think what's ironic and sad is that the same voices that like to talk about how everyone deserves fairness, they're all about equality, are now making life more difficult and often setting women and girls back in the context of whether or not they have opportunity and resources, because now they have to include, there's this competition of underprivileged groups, of special identity classes. And lo and behold, girls and women don't make it to the top anymore. We've got a new rainbow agenda, and that has to take precedence. So we've seen this. I introduced this by talking about Title IX. And I know this is an issue you're passionate about as well, that our government is seeking to redefine this program that basically is to extend opportunities, we'll put it that way, to previously underprivileged groups, so that there would be more equal opportunity in our school systems, in athletics, et cetera. And how's that going? How's that working out? That's how it started. Sam, how's it going?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if all your viewers understand the implications that Title IX was just rewritten by the Biden administration and the U.S. Department of Education. And this is extremely serious, because it really puts our girls and women and all of our children under attack, in harm's way. And it does so many things simultaneously, and it also erodes parental rights. So a little background, Title IX is part of the Civil Rights Bill of 1964, right? And over time, they added these amendments or titles. I believe Title VII was discrimination, race discrimination, and Title VIII was, employment discrimination. And then we get to Title IX. And so that is it protects women by making sure there's no discrimination based for educational opportunities. Okay, so this was the crowning jewel of the feminist movement in 1972 when this passed, right? And so now it's the tip of the spear of these culture wars, because it has been redefined, sex has been redefined to include gender identity. So what that means is that men can lay claim to spaces that have been put aside for women, such as bathrooms and sports. Now, a lot of times people think the Title IX bill is the sports bill, right? And it does have sports application. But really all it says is that women, you can't discriminate based on sex for educational opportunities. So to put it into perspective, what it did for women was it allowed them to compete for scholarships in sports. Mm-hmm. And so that opened up their educational opportunities. And so if you look at history, you have seen women go to college for playing different sports, and that opening up graduate programs, those types of things. And so we've seen, I think the stat that I saw was 92% of women executives now played some sort of scholastic sport in college. And so if education is a key sequence in life, right? So we have really come a long way for women in their progress in education. And so with these changes that happened in April to go into effect in August, It redefines what sex is. And so it's saying, biological sex no longer matters because now we identify it as sex characteristics, sex stereotypes, and gender identity. So that's very dangerous. You're going to see things where women are no longer protected in bathrooms, locker rooms, obviously sports. I do believe that there's another ruling coming. It's still on hold that will address the sports issue even more specifically. But this also erodes parental rights.
Hope say a little bit more about that because I know we're used to thinking about this in terms of like the Leah Thomas scandal, for example, and everybody knows now Riley Gaines has become a household name, and some of her teammates have also spoken out about this and about the abuse that they had to suffer because of the political agenda that dictated that this man had to be treated as a woman, and that if they had a problem changing in front of a man or being forced to compete against a man, that they were the ones that had the problem, that they were the ones that needed counseling, that they were the ones that needed to be silenced and couldn't speak their quote unquote their truth. You couldn't speak about their experiences, and no one cared about making them comfortable because they went up against the victim group du jour and they lost. And this was really the case study, I think, or the trial balloon, so to speak. And this is not going to be the last situation. We've only seen cases like this expand. We've only seen more and more examples of women coming forward and saying, why is this happening? Why are we the ones being deprived of these opportunities? Why are you redefining and taking these opportunities and these victories, these medals, these accomplishments away from us? What's going on in this world? And so I'm used to thinking of it in those terms, Samantha, but the parental rights aspect of that, I think that is a little bit new.
Yeah. So what it does is it erases those protections for due process protections. If you're accused of sexual misconduct, free speech, when it comes to being forced to use pronouns, whether that's a student or a teacher in a school. And so typically free speech, we think of free speech where you can, say what you want, but now we're being forced to say something. And so this has all sorts of
compelled speech.
Yeah, compelled speech. Yeah. So this has all sorts of unconstitutional, red flags in it, right? And so I anticipate there'll be some sort of injunction, before the August 1st deadline when this is supposed to go into effect. But that's where the piece of the parental rights comes in, because now you're trumping on religious beliefs too, because you're forcing people to identify someone as a different gender if that's not a religious belief, and those types of things. So that's where the parental rights piece of it comes into it. It also addresses due process, and so let me give you an example of what that means. In a college setting, if a boy and a girl, there's some sexual relations, and then the girl says, I regretted it, and goes and files a complaint. The institution now can take that under their own rule and determine whether there was sexual misconduct that happened. So this takes out due process. So again, flipping our justice system on its head, because that's not how it's supposed to work. So there's just a whole slew of things that this opens up. But I think with Moms for Liberty and other groups, I think the biggest piece of it is the parental rights issue and what we've been talking about the last few years on teaching gender ideology in schools. Iowa recently passed Senate File 496, which does not allow gender ideologies taught K through 6. That could be under question, right? So those are the types of things we no longer as parents have control of what's going on in our schools. We can't opt out of it if it's going to be a Title IX complaint, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it definitely does. And I can see the ramifications of all of this. I'm glad you're broadening the impact of all of this. I remember going to just our local school board. We had a very hotly contested for our small town school board election. Let me just say the drama was heavy. Like Netflix could have made a miniseries. I'll just leave it at that. But they had these town halls. And so it's very informative to get to go and ask questions of the many candidates that were running. And I could hear the people that were in the background, kind of the crowd murmur. And one of these ladies, I think, was a school employee. And every time issues like this came up, I could hear her mutter under her breath, it's the law. We've got to teach this. There's non-discriminate. We can't do anything about it. Like this, we're compelled to do this. Like, no, you are not. You are not compelled by law to. In fact, it's the opposite actually here in Iowa. You are not compelled by law to teach people that a unicorn is an option for your identity. Like that is imagination and fantasy that has no place in an institute of learning that's supposed to be based on facts, science, evidence, logic. And anyone, Bueller? Am I the only one that's concerned about this? And yet now we have the supposed best and brightest, the leaders of our land, are now telling people that if they don't cooperate with this, and now to even compel speech, that's huge. I don't know why that's not a headline on every single news site that you might frequent, because that's possibly even bigger to me than the issues of funding and school regulations. As much as I care about that, I mean, for a government to be able to compel speech based on nothing more than a person's feelings or chosen reality, there's no end in sight. I mean, where would that end? That's disturbingly bold. That's brazen to the point of almost burning the Constitution on the courthouse steps, kind of brazen. I mean, why aren't we talking about that?
I don't know. I mean, I'm pretty fired up about it.
Yes, we are. We're starting now. This is it. It begins here.
I think it's really just an education factor too. I mean, we need to understand these laws that are happening and what's actually going on so we can effectively fight back against it. We're starting to see some states try to say, invoke the 10th Amendment, and we're not going to comply. And I think that's a good idea. There are plenty of states. I think the Texas governor came out and said, we are instructing school districts to not comply with this. So I think you're going to see some pushback. I mean, hopefully more as time goes on, but we need to make sure that we bring attention to this issue. One of the things that's really fascinating about all of this is that this ruling came down without any congressional authorization. Mm-hmm. And so that to me, is a red flag as well. And I think that there is a 60-day grace period where Congress can step in and do something. And so I've been urging people to reach out to their federal congressional districts and talk to people and get involved and send letters and make sure people know that we're upset about this, we're fired up about it. Because that's going to be the only way that we draw attention to it if we just let it, slide by. Now, I do also know that there are state attorneys across the country that are filing, lawsuits against the Biden administration on this as well. I am hopeful and certain that the governor and Brenna Bird will do something. It's just a matter of time. I mean, I can't imagine with all the progress we've made in Iowa on parental rights and gender ideology and all of this nonsense going on that we would let this slip through. And because it erases, we passed Protect Girls Sports several years ago. And that was amazing feat. And we, mm-hmm. we feel safe in Iowa, but that with this would supersede that. So we have to stand up as citizens, as parents, and take charge.
So what's the most effective way to do that? Obviously connecting with your congressman. What are some other ways that we can get involved?
Well, you can talk to the governor's office too. You can find your local groups, your liberty-minded freedom groups, get them fired up about this, do a little research. It's not that hard to figure out the talking points of Title IX and what exactly happened. Listen to podcasts and then go out and start talking about it and really make a big deal of it. Don't be afraid to talk about these things. We opened up the show with courage, right? This is a shining moment for us to be courageous. Mm-hmm. I reread Joshua 1:9 every single day, because we are called to be courageous. And so this is a great opportunity to do that, guys. So get out there. I mean, there's no right way to do any of this. It's just making sure that our congressman, everyone knows that this is not okay. This is not okay.
Well, and I think, again, if we believe those, we have to silence the lies. We were just talking theologically about how it's not about us. Like if we go out to share the gospel and people are scoffing and mocking and whatnot, I'm like, they're free to do that. But I will not be silent for the things that I have seen and heard. I will keep on speaking the truth, because that's my job. It's just to spread the message out there. And then whatever soil it lands on, like the outcome is up to God. But I will continue to speak. And the enemy only wins if we stay silent. The enemy only wins if he or the operatives thereunto can convince us to be quiet. And that cannot be. God's people should be the ones that are willing to speak up with humble confidence, but with unwavering faith, and with the voice that says, no, right is right, wrong is wrong. This isn't up to me. It's not my standard. This is God's universe. We're living in it. And if we live according to him, we can choose life. We can choose goodness. We can choose abundance. That's what I want for my state, for my neighborhood, for the flourishing of mankind. And I see our country going in exactly the wrong direction. And all the horrible, the detriment, the fallout that I see, the misery that's coming from that, we have to be willing to stand up and speak up. You were just saying it takes courage. Yes, it does. But I think it also takes people who are just willing to leave the outcomes up to God and say, here I am, send me. I mean, in your case, you're willing to step into the political fray, sometimes called the swamp, and you're willing to get in there and to try and shine a light and to stand for what's right. And it does take courage to do that. It takes courage to fight and not be intimidated, because that's one of the largest tactics that are used against us as believers in Christ, but also just as, people that have common sense. We're being told every day, the sky is purple, the sky is green, the sky is, candy cotton pink. And with the storms that we've had lately, it can be some strange colors. But what we are told is that we have to lie about reality in order to be accepted by society. And I think there are people that won't actively do that, but they're afraid to speak up and call a spade, to say what is actually true, to reassert that no, this is the truth, and we have to align ourselves with it, come what may. So I appreciate that encouragement, and I think the next right step that we can take is to refuse to be silent about the things that matter, to be willing to be brave enough, whatever the cost, to just say, this is true. Here I stand. I can do no other. And when it comes to the kids, I think that has to be a huge motivating factor for us. I'm doing a lot of research on the founders, American founders, because I love it and I'm a nerd, but also we're doing a new series called 4 Minutes with the Founders, which will drop shortly. And I'm very excited about it. But I get to read the wisdom, the deep richness of men and women who are motivated to see beyond themselves to the generations of posterity. They always talk about posterity and what it means. Like, they were willing to pay exorbitant prices for many of them. It did cost them their lives, their fortunes, and their sacred honors. And yet they were willing to pay that price for posterity because they had integrity when it came to what God asked of them. They wanted to do what was right, and they wanted to leave behind that legacy of freedom, of a new nation, a new opportunity for posterity. And we need that type of resurgence, that type of awakening of courage in our hearts again. I think I see it. I think I see glimmers of that coming alive. I see it at the school board meetings where moms and dads are standing up and saying, no, this is right, this is wrong, and you're not going to treat our kids that way. You're not going to make our kids victims. I see it at the rallies where we say, you know what, guys, you actually work for us. So it's pretty important that we get this power balance right. And I see it in people like you that are willing to say, I could just go home and be comfortable and, not challenge myself on a daily basis in this way, but I'm willing to run for office. That is hard to do, and I appreciate that you're doing it, Sam.
Well, I appreciate you as well and the work you're doing and spreading the truth as well. It's an important job that we have, and we're called to do it. And so let's do it. Let's do it well. And because at the end of the day, we want to live freer, right? Mm-hmm. And follow the examples of our founding fathers. I mean, I always say I'm a constitutionalist. I want this country to thrive based on how our founding fathers founded it, right? I mean, it is, I sometimes nerd out as well in that stuff. And so it's fascinating, but we can do better, and we just need to stop being comfortable, and we just need to get some stuff done. Okay.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah. Well, and I think we have to understand that our liberty has to be maintained and treasured. And we've sort of sat on the sidelines or on our couches and binge Netflix for too long. And in the meantime, the enemy's been gaining, just over and over again. We don't stay static. We say nature abhors a vacuum. So if we're not actively fighting for freedom, if we're not actively fighting for a freer nation, a nation of integrity, of prosperity, all of these things, well, it's systematically being eroded by the other side. And so we need to step into that gap. Yes, it does feel like we got to scramble a little bit to catch up and get our feet under us. But yeah, whatever it takes to wake us up now. I'm awake and I'm ready, and you've poked the bear now is what has happened. And I will stand up. If I am one, then I will be one, but I know that I'm not alone. And Samantha, hopefully you feel that encouragement, that as you go around your meeting with people, that you are not alone, and that the people that you meet with know that they are not alone, that their voice can adequately be represented. And I would say excellently be represented in your candidacy and in the candidacy of conservatives across the country. We need people to stand up and speak for life, liberty, and the Constitution once again. So thanks for doing your part.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Samantha Fett, our excellent guest, she taught me quite a bit about it, and now I'm even madder than before. So thanks for that. You're welcome, America. Oh, man. I guess if we ever need, the one consolation I have is if we ever needed a grounding in the founding, it's now. We need to be certain. We need to be sure of what's right and wrong. And I've learned so much just from our personal library and doing research on the founders. I'm very excited to share a new series that's coming up. So stay tuned and watch for that. It's going to be like quick hits with the founders. We're just calling it 4 minutes with the founders. And I think you guys would really, if you're anything like me, and I know I am, you're going to appreciate the wisdom of the ages. And we just need to share that with as many people as possible to reawaken that American spark, the American dream and American identity commitment, really, the American commitment to who we are and who we can be as a people. Ultimately, this is a spiritual issue as well. And I think many of them knew that. Whether or not we know, did you know? Many of them were very committed to their faith and what grounded them as well. So perhaps we can see that reawakening in America again, just maybe. Thanks for being a part of our show today. Pass it on to a friend. If you care about this conversation and you don't want to get all riled up and ready to do something about it, just like we are, pass it on wherever you get your podcasts. And until next time, our mission is to love God, to serve people, and to live free. This is FaithWorks Live. There's no better time than now to stand for life. And you can stand with Iowa's original pro-life organization, Pulse for Life. They're the longest standing nonprofit pro-life organization in Iowa, and they're dedicated to informing, educating, and inspiring a new generation to value the sanctity of all human life, from fertilization until natural death. They serve at the State House. They educate in classrooms, at events. They proudly serve on the coalition of pro-life leaders. They are on the front lines of the battle against this throwaway culture of death that we see all around us, and we are winning ground. Hearts and minds are changing, and the pro-life movement is continuing to grow. And you can be a part of the exciting things that are happening right here in our own backyard at pulseforlife.org, and get your finger on the pro-life pulse. Sign up for their newsletter, find ways that you can make a difference, and how you can change hearts and minds with their pro-life apologetics course, pulseforlife.org. In today's world, security has never been more vital. And at FaithWorks Live, we're proud to partner with VeriGuard Security. It's a professional physical security service, and they're really raising the bar in security and private investigations. Whether you need a team of professional officers to protect what you have worked hard to build, or their mobile security units for multiple properties or large locations, from business or corporate properties to your home or neighborhood. Perhaps you've got an event coming up. They secure quality security coverage for events large and small, because it's about peace of mind and protecting you, your family, your team, and your property. Settle for nothing less than the best when it comes to your security. You shouldn't have to compromise. When it comes to security, you can trust VeriGuard. Contact them today at veriguard.us. That's VARA guard.us. For security service, you can trust VeriGuard.